The People's Liberation Army, or PLA, is the largest standing military in the world, and it's in the midst of a modernization campaign so rapid and comprehensive that it has no historical parallel. It's building advanced warships, stealth fighters, hypersonic missiles, and space-based architecture at a pace that has shocked Western observers. This vast force keeps a very close eye on a wide variety of potential rivals, competitors, and flashpoints. But how does China actually see them? Who does the PLA respect? Who does it dismiss? And who, in its own internal planning, does it genuinely fear? The answer to this question is, of course, incredibly complicated and subjective. A general in the Western Theatre Command, whose entire career is focused on the high-altitude border with India, has a very different set of priorities than a PLA Navy admiral in the Eastern Theatre Command staring across the Strait of Taiwan, or a PLAN submarine captain in the South China Sea. So, in this video, we're going to dive into the PLA's own words. We'll look at their foundational strategic texts, like the Science of Military Strategy, their official defense white papers, and the observable facts of how they spend their money, how they build their forces, and, most importantly, who they train to fight against. Before we rank China's rivals, we absolutely must understand how China thinks about modern war. If you're imagining 1 million soldiers charging across a field or 2 massive fleets lining up to trade broadsides, you're missing the entire point of the modern PLA. The PLA's doctrine, its training, and its procurement are all built around a core concept that's central to everything: systems confrontation and system destruction warfare. This concept, laid out in detail in the PLA's own Science of Military Strategy texts from 2013 and 2020, and analyzed by Western institutions like the Rand Corporation, is a direct response to watching the United States fight. From the 1991 Gulf War onward, the PLA observed that the US doesn't fight as a collection of individual units, but as a single networked system of systems. In this American way of war, a satellite detects a target, a command center in another country processes that data, an undersea fiber optic cable transmits the order, a bomber, guided by GPS, launches a smart bomb, and a global media network shapes the narrative of the strike. The PLA concluded that it could not and should not try to defeat this system like for like. It wouldn't try to build a better aircraft carrier or a better bomber and then fight a war of attrition. Instead, the PLA's goal is to shatter the enemy's system. The objective of system destruction warfare is to find the critical nodes, the soft spots, so to speak, and paralyze the enemy. This means launching anti-satellite missiles to blind the enemy's eyes. It means using cyber attacks to fry the nerves of their command network. It means cutting undersea data cables to deafen them and using hypersonic missiles to destroy key air bases and logistics hubs, preventing the enemy from ever entering the fight. The goal is to win the war before the enemy even knows how to respond, to inflict a strategic paralysis from which they cannot recover. This central doctrine is supported by several other key concepts. The first is China's official national defense policy. This is stated in their 2019 Defense White Paper. It's based on the maxim, "We will not attack unless we are attacked, but we will surely counterattack if attacked." In PLA doctrine, this counterattack is a decisive, overwhelming, and potentially preemptive strike at the very beginning of a conflict to seize the initiative and achieve war control. The second concept is the new frontier, intelligentized warfare. The 2020 Science of Military Strategy is full of this term. The PLA believes the future of warfare is AI, using artificial intelligence to fuse data from thousands of sensors, to run war games at machine speed, and to accelerate the observe, orient, decide, act loop so fast that a human-run enemy command structure simply can't keep up. The goal is to outthink and outpace the enemy's system. Finally, this is all wrapped up in the PLA's 3 warfares. This is the non-kinetic element of the fight. It consists of public opinion warfare, to shape the domestic and international narrative, psychological warfare, to sap the enemy's morale and political will to fight, and legal warfare, to use international and domestic law to claim legitimacy for your actions and paint the enemy as the aggressor. So, when the PLA ranks a rival, it isn't asking, can our tanks beat their tanks, or can our ships beat their ships? It's asking, how powerful is their system, how reliant are they on it, how vulnerable are its critical nodes, and what combination of tools, kinetic, intelligentized, or legal, can we use to break it? With that lens, let's have a look at the rivals. In virtually every PLA document, Western intelligence report, and academic analysis, the United States is the primary strategic rival and the pacing threat. The entire concept of system destruction warfare was created with one enemy in mind: the United States. The US is the system of systems that the PLA has spent 30 years figuring out how to break. We can see it in how the PLA trains. The most compelling evidence is the Zhorye Combined Arms Training Base in Inner Mongolia, China's premier high-tech training center. At Zhorye, the PLA created its first professional opposing force, or OPFOR, a unit dedicated to playing the bad guy. This unit is known as the Blue Force. According to analysis from the Jamestown Foundation, this Blue Force is explicitly modeled on the tactics, equipment, and command structures of the United States Army and its allies, specifically Taiwan. For years, this Blue Force, the Wolves of Zhorye, consistently and decisively demolished the PLA's Red Forces in wargames. They used electronic warfare, air superiority, and rapid maneuver to humiliate the PLA's more traditional Soviet-style units. The PLA's leadership forced its units to confront a US style of fighting and to adapt or fail. This shows a deep institutional respect, the kind that comes from admitting your own methods are obsolete and the enemies are now the new benchmark. The PLA Navy does the exact same thing with its own Blue Force squadron that studies and replicates US Navy tactics to provide a realistic practice dummy for the fleet. From the PLA's perspective, the US system has profound strengths, but also critical and perhaps fatal weaknesses. Its strengths are obvious. It has its global network of alliances, its unmatched global logistics and basing, its overwhelming technological superiority in key areas like undersea warfare, command control, communications, computers, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, and let's not forget its military's vast combat experience. But the PLA also perceives critical weaknesses, and these are what system destruction warfare is designed to target. Chinese strategists believe the US is over-reliant on a few exquisite and expensive platforms, like its aircraft carriers, which are massive, high-value targets for hypersonic missiles. They believe the US is critically dependent on its space-based assets like GPS for navigation and targeting, and satellites for communication. Take those out, and the system is blind. Finally, the PLA believes the US has a low political tolerance for a long, costly war with mass casualties. The PLA's goal is to win a regional conflict, over Taiwan for example, so quickly and decisively that the US political system doesn't have time to mobilize. The aim is to present a fait accompli before the full weight of the American system can even be brought to bear. The Rand Corporation's US-China military scorecard quantifies this. While the US still holds a commanding lead in protracted global conflict, the PLA has largely closed the gap in a local scenario. In a fight in the Taiwan Strait, China's geographic proximity, its massive arsenal of anti-ship ballistic missiles, and its integrated air defenses may now give it a local advantage. And for the PLA, that local, high-stakes fight is the only one that matters. This brings us to the most important and unique rival in the PLA's mind. In China's 2019 Defense White Paper, Taiwan isn't listed as a foreign country or a rival. It's a core interest and an internal matter and the PLA states that it makes no promise to renounce the use of force to achieve unification. The entire PLA modernization campaign, its new amphibious ships, its massive rocket force, its focus on joint operations, is fundamentally driven by the Taiwan scenario. When the PLA ranks Taiwan, it's not ranking the Taiwanese military in a one-on-one fight. The PLA knows it would win that. It's ranking the scenario, which is arguably the most complex and difficult military operation possible. The challenge, as laid out in texts like the NDU's Crossing the Strait, is threefold. First, the invasion itself. An amphibious assault across a 100-mile wide strait against a prepared defender is a logistical nightmare. The PLA must be able to move hundreds of thousands of troops by sea and air while under constant fire. Second is Taiwan's own porcupine strategy. Taiwan knows it can't win a conventional fight, so its goal is to make an invasion as painful and costly as possible. It's investing heavily in asymmetric weapons, sea mines, anti-ship missiles, fast attack craft, and mobile air defense systems, all designed to prickle the invader and slow them down, buying time. Third, and this is the real challenge for the PLA, is that the Taiwan scenario isn't a one-on-one fight. The PLA's primary problem is how to conduct this invasion while simultaneously fighting a system destruction campaign to keep the United States and its allies, primarily Japan, out of the conflict. This is why the PLA's force structure looks the way it does. The PLA rocket force has a massive arsenal of conventional ballistic missiles with one primary purpose: to saturate Taiwanese air defenses and to strike US airbases in Japan and its naval assets in Guam. The PLA Navy is built not just to blockade Taiwan, but to deny the US Navy access to the Philippine Sea and the Taiwan Strait. The PLA respects Taiwan's military as a professional, well-trained and well-dug-in force, but it sees the true opponent in any Taiwan scenario as the United States. Taiwan is the objective, the US system is the main enemy. If the US is the primary rival, Japan is ranked as its sharpest deputy. In Chinese strategic thought, Japan is almost never viewed in isolation. It's seen through the lens of the US-Japan alliance. It's the linchpin of the first island chain, the string of islands from Japan down through Taiwan and the Philippines that contains China. In PLA analysis, Japan is the unsinkable aircraft carrier for American power. It hosts the largest concentration of forward-deployed US forces in the world, including an aircraft carrier strike group and an F-35 wing. In any Taiwan scenario, these bases are the system that the PLA must neutralize. But the PLA's respect for Japan goes far beyond its role as a host. The anecdote here isn't a historical quote. It's the constant, daily interactions in the East China Sea. PLAAF and PLAN forces are in a constant, high-stakes dance with the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force and Air Self-Defense Force. The PLA has a deep, specific, and technical respect for the JMSDF in particular. Why? Because the JMSDF is one of the most professional and technologically advanced navies in the world, with a mastery of a very specific skill: anti-submarine warfare. This is a direct threat to the core of China's nuclear deterrent. China's boomer submarines, which carry its sea-based nuclear missiles, are intended to hide in the deep waters of the Pacific. The JMSDF's fleet of advanced destroyers, submarines, and P-1 maritime patrol aircraft are among the best in the world at hunting those submarines. This respect has recently morphed into genuine alarm. For decades, Japan's pacifist constitution meant its military was for defense only. But as noted in Japan's own 2024 defense white paper, that's changing. Japan is now requiring counter-strike capabilities, a euphemism for hundreds of long-range missiles like the American Tomahawk. For the PLA, this is a massive strategic problem. The unsinkable aircraft carrier can now hit back at the Chinese mainland. Japan is no longer just a shield for the US, it's becoming its own spear, and a very sharp one at that. This rival is in a completely different category. This isn't a system warfare fight for the PLA's Navy or Air Force. This is the primary day-to-day mission of the PLA Western Theater Command. This is a continental, high-altitude, attritional fight defined by mountains, war control, and logistics. The anecdote that defines this rivalry is the 2020 Galwan Valley clash. Dozens of Indian and Chinese soldiers were killed in a brutal medieval-style brawl using clubs, stones, and bare hands. This incident is telling because, despite the presence of thousands of heavily armed troops, no shots were fired. This demonstrates the PLA's obsession with escalation control. Both sides are nuclear armed, which puts a hard ceiling on any conflict. The goal is to win under that nuclear threshold. The PLA doesn't fear an Indian invasion of Beijing, but it does respect India's large, professional, and, unlike the PLA, battle-hardened army. India's high-altitude mountain corps are some of the most experienced in the world, having fought for decades in high-altitude environments like the Siachen Glacier. The PLA's strategy for this strategic direction isn't system destruction in the maritime sense, it's infrastructure dominance. As noted by Indian think tanks like the IDSA, China has spent the last 2 decades engaging in a massive infrastructure buildup in Tibet and Xinjiang. It has built new highways, high-speed rail lines, and air bases that connect its heartland to the line of actual control. The PLA's assessment is that it can now move, supply, and reinforce its troops in the Himalayas far faster and more efficiently than India can. In any future border conflict, China believes its logical advantage will allow it to surge forces, seize limited objectives, and then control the escalation, winning a decisive local victory before India can fully mobilize its larger ground forces. It's a slow, grinding, logistical rivalry, but one the PLA takes just as seriously as the high-tech fight at sea. Until recently, Australia wasn't a high-priority rival for the PLA. It was a distant, middle-power US ally, more of an economic partner than a military threat. That all changed in 2021 with the announcement of AUKUS, the trilateral security pact between Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States. The proof of how the PLA ranks this new threat is its 3 warfares response. The moment AUKUS was announced, China's public opinion and legal warfare campaigns went into overdrive. Chinese state media and diplomats furiously denounced the pact, calling it a Cold War mentality, an Anglo-Saxon clique, and, most pointedly, a dangerous act of nuclear proliferation. Why this furious reaction to a handful of submarines that won't even be in the water for another decade? Well, because AUKUS is a system warfare nightmare for the PLA. First, it reinforces and expands the US's system. It pulls another high-capacity, technologically advanced US ally into a tight, high-tech military pact focused explicitly on countering China. Second, Australia provides strategic depth. It's a stable, continent-sized base for logistics, basing, and operations that's outside the range of most of China's conventional missile arsenal. It provides a second island chain fallback position for allied forces. Third, and most importantly, is the type of weapon: nuclear-powered submarines. SSNs are the ultimate system weapon. They're stealthy, they're virtually unlimited range, and they're designed to do 2 things the PLA fears most: hunt China's own boomer submarines and enforce a distant blockade on China's sea lane trade routes, which are its economic lifeline. The PLA doesn't rank today's Australian military as a primary peer, but it ranks the AUKUS Pact as one of the most dangerous and destabilizing future strategic developments, as it's designed to harden, expand, and deepen the very system the PLA is trying to break. This final category of rivals isn't ranked on their ability to fight a conventional war with China, they're rather seen as objectives in a different kind of conflict: the grey zone. This is where China's 3 warfares are in action every single day, and where the PLA tests its own ability to win without fighting. The system China uses here isn't its mainline battle fleet, it's its third sea force. This concept, detailed by the US Naval War College, describes the layered system China uses to change the facts on the water in the South China Sea. The first layer is the People's Armed Forces Maritime Militia. These aren't just patriotic fishermen, as China claims. They are a professional, government-paid and militarily trained force whose fishing boats are often large, steel-hulled vessels designed for ramming. They're used to swarm, harass, and occupy disputed reefs and shoals. The second layer is the China Coast Guard. China's Coast Guard isn't a rescue service. It's a massive, heavily armed military force with many ships larger than naval destroyers. The CCG is used to block, ram, and use high-powered water cannons against vessels from the Philippines and Vietnam, all while claiming to be enforcing the law. The third layer is the PLA Navy itself, which sits just over the horizon. Its presence provides the implicit threat of overwhelming military force, the big stick that ensures no one dares to escalate a law enforcement dispute into a shooting war. As analysed in NTU press articles, the PLA's goal here is to degrade the enemy system through sheer exhaustion. By using lawfare to claim the waters, public opinion warfare to paint itself as the victim, and the militia to seize territory, China stays just below the threshold of what would trigger a full military response from the United States under its mutual defense treaty with the Philippines. These nations aren't ranked as military peers. They're the primary targets and testbeds for the PLA's non-kinetic and grey zone operations, a slow-motion system assault designed to win a war of attrition without ever firing a shot. From the official doctrines, academic texts, and observable training we've discussed today, we can conclude that the PLA doesn't have one simple ranking of its rivals. It has a matrix of different threats, different scenarios, and different strategic directions. But if we had to synthesize this evidence into a final opinion, it would be this. The United States is the primary rival, pacing threat, and benchmark. The entire PLA modernization effort, from its doctrines to its hardware, is designed to defeat the US system. Taiwan is the primary scenario. It's the core interest that's the most urgent, most important, and most likely flashpoint, and it's the problem that drives all PLA joint force planning. Japan is the most dangerous deputy, a rival respected for its high-tech professionalism and feared for its critical role as the linchpin of the US alliance. India is the most powerful continental rival, a separate and serious nuclear-armed challenge defined by high-altitude geography and logistics. AUKUS and Australia represents the most threatening future development, as it's a direct, long-term effort to expand and harden the very system China's trying to break. And finally, nations like the Philippines and Vietnam are the primary grey zone targets where China practices its three warfares to win conflicts below the threshold of open war. Remember though, this is merely our opinion based on synthesizing these open source documents. The PLA's true internal assessments remain some of its most closely guarded secrets. But which nation do you think the PLA is most focused on? Did our analysis of system destruction warfare make sense to you? Do you have any evidence from your own reading that corroborates, or better, contradicts the doctrines we discussed today? Let us know all that and more in the comment section below. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something new.